Hello, and welcome to Episode 3, Epilepsy, Autoimmune Diseases, and More. I'm your host, John Malanka, for the Sacred Plant Healing Secrets Exposed. Thank you for joining us today. In the last episode, we heard some amazing success stories from patients who are using cannabis to treat their pain. These patients discovered that the sacred plant works so effectively on their pain that they're able to get off their pharmaceutical drugs and avoid all unwanted side effects. We revealed how this plant stimulates our internal pharmacies to reduce pain and inflammation through our own endocannabinoid system. We also learned about the sacred plant's entourage effect, how the plant's cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids work together to maximize its therapeutic benefits. A special thank you from the bottom of my heart to those of you who took the time and energy to generously purchase a package from us. You now have in your possession multiple tools to help yourself and those you love to live a longer, happier, and more vibrant life. Your support will also allow us to spread this critical information for free so that people everywhere can benefit. You are amazing, and I want to thank you. In this episode, we're going to look at how the sacred plant can treat epilepsy and also take a look at the medical cannabis program in Israel to witness firsthand how cannabis is providing miraculous relief for children with seizure disorders and patients with multiple sclerosis and breast cancer. First, let's hear from Ray, whose daughter Emily suffers from severe epilepsy.
My daughter, her name is Emily. She is now going to be 10 years old next week. She was 5 months old when we got her vaccination shots, and we came home and she had her first ever seizure, which lasted about 45 minutes. And went to the hospital. We didn't even know what seizure is, to be honest with you. I've never seen one. We went to the hospital and they put her on a whole ton of medication. I think they put her on phenobarbital. They sent us home, and she had another seizure a few days, maybe a week later. And we have tried everything and more that the Western medicine has to offer. She has had times that she has had multiple seizures a day that lasted long. She has had seizures that lasted over an hour, where she had to be put into coma, basically. We've tried a lot of other treatments, like there are alternative treatments like neurofeedback, biofeedback, diets, parasite treatments. I mean, you name it, we've done it. Ancient Indian treatments and Kabbalah treatments, you name it. Anything that was ever written with the word seizure or epilepsy in it, I have definitely tried on Emily. Unfortunately, all of them failed. I bought a lot of CBD oil from different vendors in California, and most of them didn't work, and if one worked, it was not consistent. The problem was consistency and not being able to obtain it again, and if I did, it wasn't the same, maybe. And the products were not consistent at all. There was no test results, there was no ratios. You just had to get it and give it to your child. And so we did that for a while, and after maybe a few months of trying that, we found out that we don't have consistency. It was good, and then it was bad. It was worse sometimes. So the challenge was there, where a parent like me was supposed to give something to her child or his child, not knowing what it is that I'm giving them. And if it worked, what was it that worked, so that I can copy that? That didn't exist for me. That was my biggest challenge. You have to, it's definitely a lot of work. There's a science behind it. You have to do everything consistently. You have to make sure everything is always the same. You have to maintain conditions exactly the same way. So my daughter, at the time when she has been on most medications, multiple 4 medications, she's had multiple seizures a week or a day sometimes. Ever since I've started her on this oil, she is now almost medications free. So we have been able to taper almost all of her medications off, and we're still going until she is completely medication free. Due to the fact that she's almost medication free, her cognitive has improved so much. She's talking more than ever, she's running, jumping, much more energy, learning ability is improved, and appetite has improved. And the oil definitely contributes to all those, but her seizures, which are still happening, but they're happening on average about once every week or so, not every day, and they're controlled at home. We don't go to the hospital, we don't use rescue medications, we haven't gone to the hospital for a year or two. And I think once I learn or we learn more about dosing and ratios, and once we take her off completely off of medications, I should have better control. I should be able to take care of that once a week seizure also. So I had hope again, and I knew that I'm gonna do everything I can to have this and try it for my daughter. I just want to say, for us, out of everything we've tried all these years, this has definitely been the miracle. This has been the one that has helped her more than anything else.
Genetically speaking, hemp and cannabis are the same plant. Medicinally speaking, they have different applications. Hemp CBD is a great health and wellness product, anti-inflammatory, can be anti-seizure on some levels. I know people gravitate towards hemp because it's legal in all 50 states, but there are many, many patients who would thrive with a tad of THC. For instance, the seizure patients. If you take hemp CBD, there's dramatic reduction in seizures. Some patients, if you add a tad of THC, they'll have a much more reduction in their seizure activity. So, but you don't know that until you try it with each patient. A lot of people don't have access to cannabis, so they don't have that luxury, and hemp is the next best thing.
One of the things you heard in Ray's story is the long process of figuring out exactly which formulation of cannabis oil to give to Emily and how much. We'll explain more about the different preparations and dosings of cannabis in episodes 5 and 6. But Ray's experience demonstrates why there is such great need for research and clinical trials. It's clear that cannabis can control seizures in many patients, but without the proper research, parents are left fumbling in the dark. As you remember from the first episode, cannabis has been prohibited in the United States for the past 75 years, obstructing doctors and scientists from performing any research. For this reason, the research was outsourced to other countries like Spain, Italy, and Israel. Let's hear Dr. David Bierman tell us a little bit more about that.
I think one of the great tragedies in this country and around the world is that reefer madness dampened the enthusiasm to do research. And marijuana or cannabis has at least 480 compounds in it. Probably over 100 of them are cannabinoids, and many of the cannabinoids have therapeutic value. THC, the characteristic of THC, the molecular character of it, was only discovered, only worked on in 1964 by Raphael Mechoulam in Israel. Now, fortunately, we have research that's going on in Spain, we have research that's going on in Italy, in Germany, in Israel, in the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, the United States has really lost the market for cannabinoid-based, cannabis-based medicines.
Our medical system, the way that we treat these diseases, isn't working. We're not preventing disease, and we're not effective at treating most of these diseases. So, and this is a plant, the cannabis plant, literally. Studies have been done on cannabis to show that it's effective at treating multiple sclerosis, that it stops epileptic seizures. I think it's one of the most amazing plants that's ever been given to us by God, and we're not using it properly.
Dr. David Bierman made a reference to Reefer Madness. This was a silly, low-budgeted film made in the 1930s, originally intended as a morality film to teach parents about the dangers of marijuana.
Smoking the soul-destroying reefer, they find a moment's pleasure, but at a terrible price. Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide.
Because of the hysteria around the perceived dangers of cannabis, scientists and doctors in the U.S. lost a valuable opportunity to study the compounds in this plant. But fortunately, other countries like Israel were not affected by this reefer madness, and cannabis science was able to move forward there. Now, we'll take you on a trip to the Holy Land to learn more about the sacred plant. We will begin at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, where you'll meet renowned Professor Raphael Mechoulam, one of the world's leading authorities on cannabis science. Let's hear how Professor Mechoulam was able to first study cannabis and isolate its active compound, THC.
being in a small country, I went to the head of my institute, asked him, do you know anybody in the police? And he said, yes, he phoned somebody at the police headquarters. So I went to the police, picked up 5 kilos of hashish. I was on a bus and people were just smelling and saying, what the hell, what kind of a smell is that? And nobody knew that I was going around with 5 kilos of hashish. And for many years, NIH then supported my work. I had to apply for grants all the time, every 3 years, but they were very, very nice to us. And most of the work that we did in cannabis was supported by NIH. And indeed, my good friend Yechiel Gaon and I were able to identify the active compound within the next 6 months. And we were surprised to find out that there were a lot of other compounds, more or less of the same chemical structure, more or less. But basically there are 2 compounds in cannabis, the THC, which is the psychoactive, and there is a second one called cannabidiol, which is closely related chemically, but has no effect, a cannabis type effect. And quite a lot of our physiology is based on this. Something in the body acts on a receptor when needed, and the receptor then starts a procedure and things change. And we worked very hard on trying to identify a compound in the brain that binds to the receptor. We found in the brain anandamide, a compound that binds to the cannabinoid receptors. The THC mimics its activity. There are actually in the brain, in our body, probably about 200 compounds of the same type. And the body actually makes many of them. Now, I don't believe that the body makes a compound because it has nothing else to do. It makes the compounds because it probably wants to use them.
As Professor Mechoulam explained, he was not only able to isolate THC, he was able to isolate the compounds in our brain that mimic the effects of THC. These compounds are called anandamide and 2-AG. Their discovery has made biological work on cannabis possible. It is also interesting to note that our own National Institute of Health was underwriting Professor Mechoulam's work on cannabis while it remained off limits to the scientists in the U.S. This is not surprising, given what we revealed in Episode 1 regarding the government's hypocritical position on cannabis. The person responsible for starting the medical cannabis program in Israel is the former Minister of Health, Yehuda Baruch. As Dr. Baruch will explain, he was head of the Anti-Drug Abuse Committee in Israel and had been 100% against cannabis. Let's hear how his mind has changed into becoming a proponent of the sacred plant.
My background in cannabis started actually only 10 years ago. I'm a retired colonel from the Israeli army, and I was at the time when I started working with cannabis, I was the head of the medical management division in the Ministry of Health. For the first 2 years, actually, I thought it was, how should I say it, nothing important, okay, especially as I'm head of the Anti-Drug Abuse Committee in Israel. And then I got a really moving phone call from a cancer patient who said it felt important to call me because he knows he's going to die, and he died the next week. And he wants to thank me for helping him to finish his life with dignity. And that was really moving, because for a doctor, if you can't cure the patient, at least to help him in his last days die in dignity, I think it's extremely important. And actually that was the turning point for me, that I thought maybe there is something in medical cannabis. And from then on we started to erect the system that is still going on in Israel. And we decided to let certain growers grow cannabis, so we can schedule it and we can decide on what standards. We don't know exactly what cannabis we want, but we know we don't want any germs and no yeast and other heavy metals and so forth. We didn't get any permission. We started giving medical cannabis, and then we started to do the research because we thought it works. Because it's very unique, and it's very, I think one thing that allows it is the safety profile of cannabis. It's part of the story because we didn't have any dispensaries in the time. And after I allowed Tikkun Olam to open the first dispensary in a civil district, I allowed all the other growers to open the dispensaries within my hospital. For me, it's amazing. It's a change of 180 degrees. Okay, I went from something to the strict opposite. do the strict opposite.
As Dr. Baruch explained, the cannabis program in Israel is much more advanced than the system here in the United States. In the U.S., the majority of states have voted to make medical cannabis legal for patients only with certain qualifying illnesses. But that means that the sacred plant is only legal on the state level. It's not federally legal. This tensions around legality creates a huge headache for caregivers, patients, and cannabis providers. By contrast, in Israel, the cannabis growers are federally sanctioned by the Israeli government. The cannabis collectives enjoy full legal protection and are able to collaborate with hospitals and physicians to run clinical trials with their medicine.
We're at Tikkun Olam's dispensary. We're located in the middle of Tel Aviv on Evin Gvirol. It's a very busy street. It's the only dispensary at the moment in Israel because of the very strict regulations. Obviously, we would love to open more dispensaries so we're more accessible to our patients. But this dispensary is only for medical cannabis. And a patient that comes here has to show his license and an ID, and then he is able to come inside and take his monthly dosage.
Shalom.
Hello.
Hi, my name is. I'm a patient of medical cannabis for 5 years. I've been diagnosed for 10 years ago with multiple sclerosis. I heard about cannabis treating MS by a friend. He passed away. He had cancer, and he was here in Tikkun Olam, and he met other patients with MS, and he told me that he sees the results, and it's amazing, and I got to try it. And I tried to talk about it with my doctor, but I didn't know much about it. And then I saw all the science, all the research they have of multiple sclerosis and cannabis, and I was amazed. And then I came to my doctor and I said, I gotta get the license. And it was a life changer for me. It helped me just to feel like a normal human being on a daily basis. Sleeping well, less spasm, which is a very big problem with MS. So it's much better. And for now, I'm not taking any medication. I only use cannabis. Even if I would feel a little bit sleepy or a bit dizzy, it's much better because I can't really function when I have the symptoms of multiple sclerosis. So I have 2 small kids, and it's much easier for me to function with them and to be a full mother with them. I take the CBD by pills. Using CBD helps me be much more alert during the day. I can function much more better than if I won't use it, I won't be able to do all the things that I can do now. And it would be very hard for me. Oh, bye, toda.
So we're in an accessory store. We decided that the patients should have, because our store is small and we really want to provide a very intimate feeling. So we opened this store so patients can kind of feel free and fun to use accessories to the way they medicate. You can see here that we have, different types of water pipes, hemps. We do bring the Volcano because they're authorized to work with patients. It's very important to have products that, have been tested, and you can really feel safe if you provide an elderly with a vaporizer. And my dad was in a car accident, and he kind of broke all of his ribs, and he was getting addicted to morphine. And I kind of decided that this might be a way to treat it. So that was my first encounter with cannabis. And this is what I want to do with my life. I believe in it 100%. And I really believe in having medical cannabis as an alternative to patient care. So this is our nurses' clinic. We have specialized nurses for adults and for pediatric. And they provide a whole consultation. The person who founded Tikkun Olam, Tzachi Cohen, his vision was to provide, a seed-to-patient organization. So really to start growing, to provide the medication to the patients, and then to get their feedback and go back with that feedback to the cultivation, to the breeding, and to try to understand which strains are better to grow for certain elements. We believe that the connection between the producer or the grower to the doctors is essential, because then we can work together like we do in the pediatric department. You know, we talk to the doctors, we decide on a certain dose to start with an extract, and then, you know, we kind of learn as we go, and then we replicate that.
שלום. היי, שלומך. אני צריכה תעודת זהות, בבקשה.
My name is Nama, I'm 55-year-old. In 2008, I had a breast cancer. Since I finished all the chemotherapy treatment and the radiation, things never came back to normal. And my life became just impossible. I mean, my life quality was so low in all terms. Inbal, she's my friend for a very long year. And I talked to her and she said, maybe we need to try this, because they knew that migraines is one of the diseases that can be helped by the cannabis. Since I started the cannabis medicine, for example, my blood test is completely different. The nurse called me and she told me, did you see the results? You had never had a blood test like this before. Everything is so healthy and calm. It gives me a feeling that I'm the person that I wanted always to be, and I could never be there. And I'm so focused, I'm so on earth. It's so difficult to explain this, but that's the feeling.
So the reason that we meet each other, that we need to write down to the health government, that we need more cannabidiol. It's a big argument in Israel at the moment, that they ask us to use cannabis when the patient stopped the chemo. And we said to the health government not to cut off, because when you finish the chemo and you have a lot of side effects. So I really want you to tell me about that. I really want to go back to the end of the session, how you feel after when you finish.
So first of all, there was the major fatigue. I can relate it straight to the cancer, because it was never like this before. I woke up very early in the morning, energizing. How do you say energizing?
Energizing, great.
I feel
no fatigue anymore.
No,
great.
Not at all. I can relate it straight to the cancer, because it was never like this before. This gone.
What about the edema that you have?
The lymphedema is much better.
No painful, no?
No
painful.
No.
Great.
No, and when I smoke, I really feel the blood. Maybe it's not, I'm not sure what is it, but it's like something is
there, of course.
It's happening in the body. That's what you feel. You feel like something is happening into your body.
And what about your medicine? You used to take like 5 or 7 medicine?
Yeah.
What about that? Tell me.
Nothing.
You cut everything?
Everything. I trying, to lose weight, and I couldn't lose a gram. And now, for half a year, 10 kilo.
It's a defense system. As we understand now, the endocannabinoid system probably works, and your body tries to fix himself, and that's the reason we have such a beautiful result. So we're in the target, but I think we need to change the variety of the cannabis. I really want you to meet a new variety. So, this is CBD capsules. The name of the variety, it's Avidekel. It's a very, very anti-inflammatory. And of course, we serve CBD if we don't want the side effect of the THC. If we take it together, so you don't become confused or stoned or a bad side effect. And this is the way it's look, you see? It's a really normal capsules. Give me your hand, I'll give you one. And we can open one, you see? What is inside, it's flowers that make it activity by they warm it, and it's 0.08 milligram each capsule.
I think it's so unfair that there is something like this in the world, which is a present. It's a present for everyone. And it's so unfair that people can't get to it. Our world will change. I think the world will change if people would be able to have it. My cancer is gone. All the exams are good. I feel inside that everything is good. You feel the healthiness inside. It's a feeling. I have no other way to describe it.
You've now seen how the medical cannabis program is working in Israel. Even in this small and religious country, the sacred plant is well established as a legitimate medicine. One of the most well-publicized uses of medical cannabis has been in pediatric seizure disorders. Leading pediatric neurologist, Dr. Yuri Kramer. Dr. Kramer is doing a clinical trial with cannabis for some of his patients who do not respond to other seizure medications. Let's meet the families of some of these epileptic children and hear more from Dr. Mechoulam and how the research around CBD and epilepsy began.
We thought that obviously these compounds are involved, whether the endogenous compounds in the brain or the compound THC that mimics their action, they are involved in many things. And of course there is a huge list of things that have been published or have been known for thousands of years. There is a story of one of the major Arab leaders in the 15th century who had an epileptic son, and he was given cannabis, and he was not epileptic anymore, but he had to take the cannabis forever. There are a lot of stories like that. And so we thought, well, let's try them. And indeed, in collaboration with a group in South America, after they had done work on animals, they went ahead with cannabidiol. So we isolated ultimately nearly half a kilo, 500 grams of cannabidiol, and sent it to Brazil, and they tested it. They tested in epileptic patients that nothing was helping them anymore. And they were helped. And out of the 8 patients, 4 had no attacks, 3 had much less attacks, and only 1 was not affected. And in the controls, of course, they continue to have their epileptic attacks. And I thought, well, maybe people start using it. Nothing happened. For nearly 30 years, nothing happened, which is a shame, because in some epilepsies in children, nothing helps. And over the last 3 or 4 years, parents in the US found that, yes, material that contains high levels of cannabidiol helps their children. The only thing that helps them. It was there in the literature 35 years ago. It should have been expanded.
They call it a drug resistance epilepsy, where the kids have to fail about 3 to 5. In all reality, it comes to 6 to 10 to 12 medications before certain doctors even consider it. And only then they allow us to try cannabis. I mean, we all think that it should be cannabis, resistance epilepsy, to where if cannabis doesn't work, which it will, then you start them with medications. Over the years, we tried close to 12 medications, including morphine, just to knock her out because nothing helped. Every medication we tried either didn't help or sent her to intensive care within 3 days. So after a while, I just decided that's it. I'd rather have seizures than the side effects of the medication. And I started researching and everything and got to medical cannabis and went through many neurologists here in Israel. And I finally got to the neurologist I'm with today. And thank God, about 1.5 years ago, he decided, okay, there's nothing more to do. We'll just do the medical cannabis. And it's been from the get-go, from the first few drops. She had dozens of small seizures during the day that I wouldn't even count. All those jumpings and absent seizures and all that, they weren't seizures for me. It was nothing. The big seizures, the neck breaking, breath stopping, all that were anywhere from 3 to 10 a day. As soon as we started with the oil, that first day, she did not have any of the small seizures anymore. That was it. I didn't see them again. And everything was fine with the oil. It just didn't cut it for the big seizures. There were less, they were not as hard, but they were still there. And then a friend of mine one day calls me and says, you got to try this. We tried the vaporization, and it worked on her son. And she's like, you got to try this. I took one, gave her, and within the seizure, it started, vaporized her, and it just stopped. I was like, wow. It was like pulling the plug out of the wall. It was just not there anymore. You can see it getting full of vapors. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that's the idea. And then I put it, and it does nothing bad to her, so it's really great. We started with one strain, and it was the oil, and it was the vaporization. And it worked great. Body does build a tolerance for medications, for strains, whatever it is. And as soon as I changed strain, it seems like it even works better. Like stuff is dissipating a lot faster. Oil from the new strain, I have to use less. So it just works to change every so often. One thing that I will not use is the processed plant. Like they try to make pure CBD, which means they take all the THC out, and I don't believe in that. I think the whole plant has to work together. And I've learned that with her, like the sativa is not good for her, so I have to use the other one. So it's a very delicate game of finding out what works for the kid. We learned so much through the research and stuff that we do, the parents and all that, and we have a group, we share everything. So we hear from all directions, and we just learned a lot on how to treat with cannabis, medical cannabis, and epilepsy.
Are you enjoying today's episode so far? Are you learning a lot of great information? Do you want to have unlimited access to the entire series so you can watch it again and share it with a loved one now or in the future? Do you want to join our movement and support our mission to inform the world on the truth about the sacred plant? Then please consider supporting our cause by owning this complete series. Your support allows us to continue spreading the truth for free. Also, a portion of each sale gets donated to charities that are on the front lines to get this plant medicine to the people who need it and to change the laws so it's freely available for everyone. Simply click the banner below to join the movement and support our mission. Thanks in advance.
There are two groups at least that are working on epilepsy, and possibly other groups that are working on other things. So in this case we have the ability to do that. The Ministry of Health is allowing, under certain conditions of course, clinical trials, and I'm a little bit involved in the administration, namely of saying yes, and I try to say yes whenever possible. And so I hope that it will go ahead.
When we understood that the future is in clinical trials of medical cannabis, and really there's not enough evidence available for doctors to feel comfortable to prescribe it, we understood that we needed to add somebody very powerful to our team. So we requested Professor Bentwich to join us and to be chief scientist in the company and lead our clinical trials.
The whole field was a sort of a black hole in a way from medical investigation, research, etc. So I have to admit that I became more and more aware of the wide physiological and medical effects of this whole family of cannabinoids, to such an extent that I didn't need to be persuaded or convinced that this is something that is going to make even a revolution in medicine.
This is Dana Children's Hospital, which is one of the main children's hospital in Tel Aviv area. And for the last 25 years, I'm a pediatric epileptologist. And we have many failures because about 30% of our patients do not respond to medication. And these are tough cases. Some of them have several attacks every day, and even more than that. Some of them slowly lose IQ and become retarded and it's really many cases of tragedy, really. So we try to help these patients that do not respond to medications. So I guess the cannabis story in epilepsy started in Israel like 2.5 years ago. And it began from the parents. And there was a kind of put a lot of pressure on the Ministry of Health. And eventually we got permission to use it.
I went to one of the committees about medical cannabis use, and legally we're not allowed to bring not the oil, not the vaporization, none of it out of the house. We can only use it with them in the house. Needless to say, kids get seizures everywhere, any given time, no matter where. Very appropriately, my child here decided to have a really hard seizure as we walked into the hall, the committee hall. And all I could say, I was like, you see? I can't do anything. I mean, you tied my hands to where I know for a fact that if I could bring the vaporization with me, which has no THC in it anyway. When I had the morphine for her, I could be anywhere with her. There's other, handful medications that anybody can go around with that are 1,000,000 times more dangerous than what we have for them, and nobody's going to even question it. But this, oh no. So it's really, that's irritating. I mean, God said to begin with, he put all the medicinal plants on earth to help us, so it was just a matter of finding the right one. And that is the right one for so many things. It just so happened they decided to make it illegal, but it's not, there's nothing to it.
I really appreciate our medicine quality. This is grade A cannabis plants. Everything is organic from our spraying and from our fertilization. And we use microorganisms to enrich the soil. Everything here is sanitized. I remind you, this is a medicine. I really would like, that our government will regulate the use of juices and edibles and whatever you can make out of this plant, even fibers, everything. This plant is amazing, it grows fast, and you can treat people with so many diseases and so many illnesses, epilepsy, Crohn's disease, fibromyalgia, Parkinson's. On the left side here, we have the cheese pie strain. This is the CBD strain. All of it goes for the children, the CBD oil. We produce another high CBD strains, but the ratio with the CBD and the THC is not there for the epileptic kids. So this one, we grow it, we know it works, and it's just like that. It's trial and error. That's it. You have to try everything until you get the one that is right for you. There is no other way, and it will do good for you. It will never kill you. You can never overdose with this plant, with this drug. Yeah, you can trust it.
In order to give physicians a clue, I guess in the end we need to try several strains, several ratios, but we need that it will be done scientifically in large numbers, and we are just beginning. So we have some criteria that we all adhere to, at least 5 medications that failed. And the patients have more than a certain extent of seizures per week or per month. Only for those we give them after they say, listen, I want to try. There is a huge network between the families, and they try things that were not recommended by us, but once they succeed, they tell it to us, and we write it down, and all the results and all the observations will be published and will be told to everybody who is interested. And I think it's maybe the second largest registry worldwide. We hope that the data would be considered valid enough. So then colleagues from other countries would like to try and give it a try, etc.
The pregnancy was going fine. When he came out, he was basically gray, non-responsive.
We took him to emergency room, and after a couple of hours, he started having seizures. So they had an MRI, and they found a real, very widespread damage in his different parts of his brain. And Lafi, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you.
Rivotril is the name. And that's a medicine that you need another medicine to get off of. I mean, it's something that's very addictive, and it causes weakness and muscular weakness, and a lot of different things that really were like the opposite of the profile of the kind of medication that he needs.
Yeah. And these were the first of 10 or 11 different medications that we tried in the course of a year. They all worked at first when they gave really high dosage and high doses, and then they stopped working. Or maybe even didn't work at all. Then we gave twice. He was hospitalized for 2 months when he got twice the steroids.
Steroid treatment, yeah.
That was really effective, but unfortunately also after a while it stopped being effective, and now his epilepsy is considered to be
intractable, it's called, I think, that non-responsive to medication.
Exactly. We were lucky to meet this doctor in
But before that, your dad, no?
Right, I forgot about it.
No, his father found out, I don't know where it was, that he read or saw on TV, something, they were talking about cannabis and epilepsy. And then we came to the doctor with, asking her if it's an option here. And it took not too long, but it wasn't automatic. I mean, it took a few weeks until, I guess it was pretty quick. It took like 2-3 weeks before we got the license. And then a few days later, we got our first batch of oil. And,
yeah, everything went pretty quickly. I mean,
yeah.
We were lucky to meet this doctor who's making some research in Israel about the use of cannabis with kids with epilepsy. He's a neurologist, and he got us right through the bureaucracy, and we were in the right place in the right time, I guess. Levi also has cerebral palsy, and the cannabis, besides being the thing that eventually reduced the seizures to minimum, and not just the amount, but also the length of each seizure. And it's been like that for over a year now.
Yeah.
So it's consistent.
Almost a year and a half,
yeah.
even. Like for us, it feels like, I want to say 90-95%. So we'll still have maybe a couple of seizures a day. That are very minor, very small, and they pass very quickly. At the worst of times when we were hospitalized, he had every other minute during the day.
One after the other.
So I guess up to now about 180 children and adolescents, we tried to give them cannabis. And of course, I'm referring to this specific group that do not respond to any of these options that I mentioned. And what we see is that there is some good results in about 20% of them. In those 20, I count all those who are more than 75% reductions. So some of them are 80%. So if they had like 10 seizures, they went down to 2. And some of them are 100%. So they stop seizing altogether. But those 20% is a sustained response for more than a year now. We have patients like close to 2 years, and the response, the good response, is being sustained. Most of them failed more than 10 drugs. All of them either failed surgery or they would not be good candidates for surgery. So that was the last hope for them. And 20% is not a large number for these families. It's a miracle.
His muscle tone changes. Like if he'll try to lift something, his whole body will stiffen up. But as long as he's like this and interested, but yeah, like it feels that maybe his essence is kept and just there's no personality, not much personality going on. But there is, but you know, it's human energy, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. You can forget for a second.
Yeah, it makes the gap between you see what you could have had, you know, and what kind of it's easier to imagine what kind of a child he could have been, you know.
Yeah. Every milestone that she goes through is we're reminded of the one that he didn't go through. But what I'm curious about is the effects of high CBD plant that you don't isolate or synthesize stuff from. Like I'm wondering what the overall effects of all the different cannabinoids are together. So we have two kinds of oil here. The two, I guess, most helpful components of cannabis are THC and CBD. Levi gets mostly CBD, that's the anti-epileptic. So this is 30% CBD with a ratio of 1 to 20, so there's 1 or 2% THC. And the other one is THC, it's 15% THC, so that's where, in cases of when he's in distress, and so we give him 1 drop of that, and it's enough to, he'll calm down and sleep well, but we don't use it every day, not every day. So this is a CBD oil?
That's all we give, just a little bit?
Yeah,
this is 5 drops.
And then in the evening another...
Yeah, just under his tongue.
And other than that, he's not on any other medication?
That's it. Giving him medicine used to be a horror show.
Yeah.
We got, I think the most we had going on at the same time was about 4 medications at the same time. Each with its own, dose. One of them.
Just giving the medication would cause seizures.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he was so.
It was so stressful that would cause seizures. So this solution is being basically kept in secret from patients that might spend 2 months in a hospital for no reason. At the time, I was just happy to get it over with, and this might help. So good. But in retrospect, I don't know if it helps
everybody, but they should definitely try it as one of the first solutions.
Yeah, because there's no side effects that are harmful, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's like acupuncture. It can help or not help, but it doesn't. There's no problem with it.
I hope you enjoyed our visit to Israel, where we saw patients benefiting firsthand from the work of seed-to-patient organizations like Tikkun Olam. Now we have seen what a federal medical cannabis program looks like in Israel. There is still a huge need for more physician education and clinical trials, but the medical cannabis in Israel is regulated, safe, and affordable. That is hardly the case here in the United States, where patients must fend for themselves. We'll talk more about the access to medical cannabis and dose it properly in episode 5 and 6. But now let's go back to Patricia Krohn, who was finally able to acquire some cannabis.
We had got hold of some cannabis. So now I'm making this oil that Rick Simpson has the recipe for. It's quite a business. You have to sieve it, then you have to evaporate the stuff in a rice cooker until you get a very tiny amount of oil. Wait a second, I have to remove myself from this. I mean, the vapors from this, you can feel it. It's sort of slightly sickening. So the vapors are flammable. That's why we're doing it outside. I haven't really considered the possibility that the police might come. Of course, they could in principle. I mean, everything's possible. Maybe they could smell the vapors, but, well, you know, a respectable old lady like me, why should they burst into my house? Yeah, what if? You don't do that for the fun of it, that's for sure. You do it because you are determined to try anything you can to avoid imminent death. As I said, the really, really serious and scary aspect of whole brain radiation is cognitive damage. And that's why this oil is good enough to be worth trying. So I'm making tablets, hash tablets of Rick's oil. I am eating this stuff. Too big. 1 tablet a day. It's disgusting. It's totally like tar. My hope is no growth of the metastases in my head, but because there is a drug war going on, I'm risking jail in order to save my life. It's a pretty weird situation in which one has the sense that it's the government that's trying to kill you. It's very hard to make the same size tablet. If this were properly done by medical companies, it would be a lot better. I've been seriously overdosed twice. It's not nice, definitely not nice. And then it lasts forever. As they say on some website, you may feel as if you're going to die, but you won't.
When I think about Patricia's situation, I truly feel outraged that our country can turn its back on suffering patients like this. How can the laws continue to deny sick people access to a medicine that our own government knows has medical properties? Our own government filed a patent on the compounds in the sacred plant and can profit from licensing that patent. Yet people like Patricia are denied access to cannabis and must break the law in order to save their own lives. This must change. By watching our series and sharing it widely, you can be the part of that change. You can help educate others and pressure our politicians to amend the laws and demand more clinical research. We will go deeper into these issues in episodes 5 and 6, but for now, let's talk about our upcoming episode, which features more astonishing stories and science around the sacred plant. In episode 4, we will take a deep look at how to treat cancer with cannabis. In episode 1, I shared how my father-in-law, Stan, was able to beat stage 4 cancer from using cannabis. We will meet other cancer patients who literally saw their tumors disappear after using the sacred plant and hear from the experts on the incredible way that the sacred plant is able to work against cancer. We will meet one of our central characters in this series, Jill, a single mother and stage 4 cancer patient who will follow closely. Like Patricia, Jill is looking to use cannabis in her fight against cancer, and she receives some astonishing results. You will not want to miss this next episode. Until then, God bless. Join the movement, support the mission, save lives. We're a small company that's committed to the truth and committed to helping humanity. When you support our mission by owning the complete series today, you allow us to continue to research, interview, expose, and share this knowledge with the world for free, just like we're doing now. If you learned something, been inspired, want to watch again, share it with a loved one, or just love how it feels to support a good cause, consider owning the sacred plant, the healing secrets exposed today. Thank you.